Hi, everyone. It's Nina Collins, and I'm here talking to you, Dr. Debbie Magids,
Hi, everyone.
Manhattan. Um,
Yes.
and full disclosure, Debbie is my therapist of many, many years. Let me turn off the sound here. We are not currently doing therapy, but I love Debbie, and she kind of saved my life, really, in a lot of ways, many, many years ago. And we've now known each other, like, it's almost 15 years since my divorce.
Yes.
So
Yes. We've known each
um,
other for
it was
over
around
15 years.
2006 when we met.
Mm-hmm.
And Debbie's in New York. Debbie's written a book called All the Good Ones Aren't Taken, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
was published by St. Martin's, I think also like 15 years ago.
Yes. Long, long time ago. Mm-hmm.
And she does some TV work. She's appeared on some of the big shows. Um, but that's not why I was drawn to her. Someone recommended me to her, and it was just one of those things where I really didn't want to find a new therapist, and we instantly clicked. And I really think she's absolutely the best. I just love Debbie. So.
And I love you back, Nina. Thank you.
So I'm glad we're doing this. So I called Debbie and asked her if she would do some sort of Zoom live, and we talked about different things to talk about, and decided to address positive psychology. A couple of weeks ago, I did an interview with Orna Guralnik from Showtime's Couples Therapy, and we talked about boundaries, which is pretty much my favorite concept and word during this time. But we're going to now talk about positive psychology because hopefully it will help some people to think about it. And I didn't do a lot of research because I just love talking to you. But I will say, once years ago, when I was thinking about trying to become a shrink, I probably knew you then. I looked into the Martin Seligman program at University of Pennsylvania on positive psychology, and actually thought about going and doing that program because I thought it was so cool. So tell us what positive psychology is.
Yeah. So Martin Seligman, he's sort of the father of all of this. And then you have people like Sean Achor that people can look up. He's from Harvard, and he's sort of more mainstream, and he's doing all the podcasts and was on Oprah.
How do you spell his name? Sean Achor?
Sean Achor, SHAWNACHOR. He's one of my favorite people who talks about this.
Oh, I don't even know that.
In a very public way. He's super smart. You can just look him up. He's great to listen to. The reason why I love this topic, and I've always loved this topic, but specifically right now, because we're in the middle of something just sort of, the world is turned upside down, and it's personal, it's micro, it's macro, it's global, it's everywhere. And, it brings to mind sort of the two words are adaptability and resiliency. Adaptability is accepting the circumstance that we're in so that we can shift our behavior. You can't shift your behavior unless you accept what's happening. Right. And resiliency is the ability to sort of thrive within the new adaptation of what's happening in the world. And positive psychology and the tenets of positive psychology really help cultivate resiliency. And so I think it's so important right now because a lot of people, it's interesting. When we started this, it was one thing, right?
Yeah,
now, and now there's sort of another wave because people anticipated by now it would be finished, right? So at first it was sort of shock, and everyone was like freaking out, and
it was kind of fun, even though it was weird. Like, it was a little like we're like camping out.
Yeah, we could do this for 3 weeks, we could do this for a month, and then it was 2 months, and now this thing is going on and on. And I believe getting more and more scary because we don't understand what this disease is, and we have to sort of be able to carry through with this and not, there's a stick with itness that we need. Yeah. That at first everyone just thought, I can do this for a month, no big deal. And the other thing I want to just caveat before I start talking about the tenets is, not everyone is in quarantine or self-isolating in the same way. We're all in a bit of a different circumstance, right? Yeah. So for some people, they could be like, oh, it's easy to follow the tenets of positive psychology. And for some people, they're like, how can I find something positive in this, right? Are you quarantined alone? Or are you with people? What's your age range? Are you able to social distance see people? Are you really isolated?
How much are you suffering financially?
How much are you suffering from? Do you have a job? Do you not have a job and don't know what to do with yourself all day? Were you sick? Do you know someone who's sick? Have you lost someone? So, I don't want to invalidate, I know that people are in different circumstances, but I'm still a believer that whatever your circumstance, you need to figure out how to not stay stuck in a bad place.
Well, the adaptability point is really good, and I hadn't thought of that. Like, I think about resilience a lot now, but I hadn't thought about the stage before resilience, which is adaptability. And it's a very good point, because I'm finding in my life there are a few people close to me who are having a much harder time adapting, just accepting that this is different.
Yes.
And you really have to be able to do that.
And I do think there is a correlation to how good of a quarantine circumstance you have.
Yeah.
I think the people that have a less good circumstance are having a harder time adapting. And there's definitely a correlation there, and I'm just going to mention that this is not what we're supposed to talk about, but there is a book out there by Viktor Frankl. He's no longer with us. It's called Man's Search for Meaning. I'm sure you've read it, and there's no one who's crossed my path that I haven't shoved this book down their throat, but it's a beautiful book that I'm talking about a lot as I'm doing these talks about a circumstance that was so dire. I mean, it didn't get more dire than being in a concentration camp, but people still found a way to adapt to this circumstance and be resilient and come through on the other side,
that's a good point.
I'm a child of child survivors of the Holocaust. And so this is something I've studied my whole life. I'm super plugged into it, but I do liken this experience. My mom's 81 years old, and she has had some things be triggered by this experience that she experienced back then, 50, 60 years ago, however long ago it was.
Sure.
So we are in a similar psychological experience, even though obviously it's not the same exact experience. So, with all of that, people do have to find a way to thrive in whatever circumstance we're given, or you go to a state of hopelessness and helplessness and you give up. And that's not what we want anyone to do.
Right. Okay. So what are the tenets of, I took some notes in thinking about this, but.
Okay. So we want to start with the most important one in my mind is one of optimism versus pessimism, right? And what optimism means is to pay attention to what you've got versus what's missing. Excuse me. So some people have optimism, by nature. It was given to them young, right? They very easily can see what they've got versus what's missing. Many people don't. They're more focused on what they're missing. And for those who don't have it naturally, I have it naturally. I think you actually have it naturally as well, right? No matter how many times you get knocked down, we figure out a way to look at the bright side. But so many people don't. And so they have to work at cultivating it, and they have to think about it all the time. Right? So if we take it now to COVID and this pandemic, so many things have been taken away from people. And so we have a real opportunity to start to look at what wasn't taken away. And really, I think you can take this with you past the pandemic of really getting down to what are the most important things. Now, obviously, if you're healthy, it's the most important thing. Without it, nothing matters. And the next line is the economics, right? But many people I'm talking to are healthy and they're okay economically, maybe not as great as they were before, but they're okay. It then gets down to, right, do we need all the extras that we had? Do we need the running around and going out and traveling and all the big stuff? Or do we start to pay attention to the things that we have, the simple things, right? The connections we have to our loved ones, which I'll talk about later, the ability to connect to our children or have a meal with our children or whatever it is, the small, simple pleasures of life, of being able to have your tea in the morning, being able, it's just getting down to the smaller things that matter. And really at the top of the hit parade is health and that everyone's okay.
And also we've all read a lot that people overestimate how much money makes a difference in our lives. So even though everyone is super stressed out about economics, and reasonably so, and jobs and everything, the truth is we all overestimate the value of money, right? It's not as important as we think it is.
Oh yeah, it's actually important up to the point of if the people who have lost their jobs, if you can't afford to sort of make your bills and eat and have a few extra things in your life, that's where money does make a difference for sort of happiness or being positive. But there's a point where it actually doesn't at all. And if people keep striving for money and things, it's because they're trying to fill something inside that's empty, and that's a whole other conversation we can have about our narcissism and emptiness and all of that. So, so the first thing is guys, just really pay attention to what you've got versus what is missing for us as we, I talk to a lot of people. the way people are acting is if we can't go to a beach this summer, or we can't have or we can't go to a
We
restaurant
can
this
have
summer.
everything we usually have.
Yeah. And the amount of like pain or I'm going to say complaining that people are
Yeah,
doing, I have to be like,
get
let's
a
just
grip.
take a beat. This is going to be 1 year of our life. It's not the rest of our lives. And I think we can find other things to make us feel okay.
And I'm not missing, I have to say, I'm not missing restaurants or art openings or movie. I mean, there are very few things that I'm really missing, actually.
Mhm. Which is amazing. Because I think you've done a lot of work on yourself to cultivate the internal world and to know what's important. I mean, you've done a lot of work,
Thanks.
right? Yeah, you're welcome. And some people have this naturally, and some people, you know, really need to work on this part of themselves.
So one way to work on it, obviously, the thing that we all hear about all the time are gratitude journals, right? Or like we have a gratitude thread in our post in our app every day that someone does, a woman named Barbara Ann, and I find it really helpful. Some people find it kind of annoying, but I really find it helpful. I don't always write on it, but I see it every day, and I do take a minute to think about just being grateful for something. I mean, it works.
Yes. Okay. So that's one of the tenets of positive psychology, and it's a great one. Sean Acor talks to this as well, and I subscribe to it. Our internal world, our subconscious, the things that filter in, we don't know if things are actually happening or we're just thinking about them, right? So, and it's also important. Yeah. So you want to actually, when you do this gratitude, you want to do it in a very specific way, I think. You want to, and you don't have to write it down. I actually find writing things down pretty annoying as well. So, and I like people to do this at night before you go to sleep, so that gratitude and gratefulness sort of seeps into your subconscious. The last 5 minutes before we fall asleep are the most important. Too many people are worrying those last 5 minutes, or watching the news, or watching something very tense on TV.
Yeah.
It really should be a peaceful, calm time, and just think about the things that you were grateful for. And I would do it very specifically, like, not I'm grateful for my life, I'm grateful for my health, like specific to the day. I'm grateful that I saw Nina today. I've missed her. I haven't seen her. And get into the feeling of what that felt like.
Yeah, or I'm grateful for that moment sitting outside in the sun when I saw the birds.
Yeah. Or I'm grateful for, that cauliflower pizza I ate. I don't allow myself all the time. It was delicious. But really go and
okay. If you're not allowing yourself cauliflower pizza, that's really sad. But okay.
Well, I'm just thinking, but and you want to really think about it and get into the emotional experience of it, because that's what seeps into your body, and then your body will feel that calm. So that's really important.
Okay.
And it's a different way of doing it, just writing down in a journal. It has a whole.
Well, you and I disagree here, because I feel like there's huge value in writing things down. I think the process of writing it down really is.
Oh, I'm not saying there's not huge value. You can write it down at night as well. I'm saying for those people who don't want to write it down, you can just think about it. It's the same. It just depends on how you learn or what feels good to you.
Yeah, that makes sense. And also, we had a insomniac thread at some point, and people talked about the value of doing this gratitude thing right before you're falling asleep as a way to fall asleep. So I think it speaks to what you're saying. It kind of
calms the body,
calms the whole body. Yeah,
it really does.
Yeah.
Another.
So optimism and gratitude are definitely linked. They're two different tenets, but they're certainly linked.
Yes, in terms of bringing yourself to a state of feeling good and positive and joyful and peaceful, right? Like, happiness is this amorphous term that I think it's a choice. It's not like a state of being, but it brings you there, versus in the sort of the fear, the anxiety, the worry, and anger maybe of what's happening now. Another important tenet is forgiveness. And the reason why I love this one, especially for now, first of all, anyone who is in your life that you once cared about and can't forgive, it's because you actually loved them at some point and they hurt you. And if you're not forgiving them, it means you're holding on to that hurt and anger, and that's not good for your own system. So in this period of time also, like, first of all, like, maybe whatever you were angry or hurt about is not as important as you thought, when you look at sort of the bigger picture of what's happening in the world and everything's turning upside down and life is short. Under those guidelines, maybe someone you loved is worth forgiving and bringing back into your life, because not that important anymore.
Mhm.
However, there are some things that have been done or angers or hurts that we don't actually want the person back in our life, but we're still holding on to it. And so
Right.
I'm urging everyone to do your best to take the opportunity that we're in right now and to let go. It's not important to hold on to it because it's not good for you.
Yeah, no, it's so true. I have a friend whose ex-wife is insanely angry all the time, and it just makes me sad. Like, I mean, I recognize it, I've been there, but it's so toxic and unpleasant. I mean, when you think about, I think about my father, right, who I don't talk to.
Yes.
Um, but I do, have I forgiven my father? I don't know. It doesn't torment me. I don't feel in an ongoing way. I don't really think about it very much. I have been a little sad, I have to say, in moments like this, like that my father hasn't reached out to me. I mean, he never reaches out to me. It still does make me sad. But anyway, I hear your point. Forget,
Well,
let
it's,
go.
listen, the way you were hurt by your father will always make you sad.
Yeah.
That's never going to go away, but it's in a very different spot than the anger and the acting out that you once did in your life because you were so hurt and angry by what happened. Like you've let go a lot of that. So it's forgiveness of like letting go, but still can't have him in your life because he continues to do what he does, right? So
Yeah.
that's the distinction.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Makes total sense.
you know, relationships in your life are part of the positive psychology tenets of really working on those relationships, right? Um, what is your connection? First of all, there's a significant other, right? But it's friendships, it's family members, it's coworkers, it runs the gamut, it spreads wide. Neighborhood, neighbors, community. Where are you in terms of how connected and how close and how authentic you are with others in your life?
Mm-hmm.
This is a good opportunity to take stock of that. Be grateful for the good connections you have, but also to look at maybe some connections one should be working on. I don't know about for you. I'm quarantined. I'm isolated alone, right? Like I don't have anyone here. I've started to see people now that it's nice out in a socially distanced way, but I found that my relationships, and I have really good ones in my life, but people who are not in my day to day, we've had an opportunity to connect much more because
Yeah.
everybody's just around and not
Yeah.
running around, right? And
Right. There's just less to do.
so people that are from college days and high school days that I don't get to talk to every day, there's been this resurgence of even more love and connection happening, right? And for some people, they can take stock of the connections that aren't happening and really start to work on them because
Yeah. I
push
mean,
comes to shove, after your health, connection to other people is the most important thing, and we're really seeing that now because we can't connect, we can't go actually reach out and touch someone.
right. I mean, I do worry. I think for people who are quarantining alone, it sounds like it's working well for you. There's some people who just feel so lonely, and that's really scary and sad. But I think you're right. It's an opportunity to really figure out who your connections are with and to deepen them or reach out.
And I want to talk, being very isolated right now is really hard. Like, again, I think there's different levels of it. Like my mother's 81. She was, for the first 2 months, like she had no contact with anyone. All of her friends were so afraid to even like show up anywhere
Yeah.
because of their age group. And she was in the house by herself and, with no job, with no sense of purpose every day. That's hard,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
to stay positive and to be like, what am I going to do every day? And, my mother, talking about resilient, I mean, she's such a highly resilient woman. She's a Holocaust survivor. She's been through so much in her life. And, we would talk. And so she would make herself go for walks every day. And we taught her how to get on Zoom. And, you have to also work for yourself, things that I did before I can leave the house because it was too crazy. I would have Zoom dinners with people. I would
Yeah.
be them at their dinner table, and you have to do what you have to do to not feel so alone.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I have to say also, I mean, you know me, I never used to be able to be alone. And I have to say, like, I've been taking these long walks. I have a couple friends I'll do some socially distanced walks with, but most days I go out and exercise by myself and I'll go walk for an hour or two alone. And I just am loving the alone time actually in a way that I never 10 years ago, 15 years ago could have imagined. Like, there's a
Yeah.
wonderful way that this is forcing us to be, unto ourselves that I am really appreciating.
Yes. And getting in touch with yourself, making friends with yourself, contemplating what your life is. But
Yeah.
not everyone is in that type of peaceful mind. Like you're in a good quarantine situation where you do have people around and you're in a place where you can walk freely and not
Right.
feel like you're with a mask. And if you bump into someone, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So again, it's amazing. And again, I don't want to invalidate anyone out there who's not
No, no.
having a good experience with it. I'm just trying to touch all bases.
Yeah.
That even if you don't like, I didn't feel like I had the freedom to walk happily in the city for the first 2 months, because it was just like we were the hot spot, right? So I had to find other ways, because I'm a walker, and I really felt it.
Did you have any way of exercising at home? I mean, you live in
well, I guess I broke the quarantine. I got myself an elliptical in my house. Yeah, you better believe it, because I was going to lose my mind. I gained 5 pounds the first month because I was, I guess, eating more and not moving. Right. So, so I just want everyone to take into consideration what their circumstance is, and then figure out the best way you can make it better. Even if it's not amazing, it's better that, it's better than it was before. And that's, keeping sort of the positivity and the resilience. I like that word better, going, that there will be the other side of this. We will get through this. And I'm going to jump to one that usually I talk to at the end, but it's called Interests and Dreams. And this is why I love this one, right? So right now we're stuck in quarantine, and, for some people, me included, there were some things that I was about to bring to fruition. Like I've been working on, it was about to go. And then this quarantine hit and everything stopped. Right. And there are some people who have never even dared to dream of, like, what do they really want in life? What are their dreams? What are their interests? What do they want to put forth in the world? Because they were afraid they couldn't do it, or they didn't have time to do it. But the reason why it's so important to think about the future and, like, what is it that I want to do? Like, contemplate your life, and where was I? Where am I now?
That's a real opportunity.
What was I doing before that was good for me? And what was I doing that maybe I don't want to be doing with my time anymore? Time is so precious right now. And dare to dream, and dream big, because it also gives you that resilience of looking forward to what you can then be off to the races and do as soon as this thing lifts, right? Like, start putting things into place. Start, if it's a book you want to write, start writing it now. If it's workshops you want to do, start creating them now. If it's, I don't care what it is.
I think for a lot of people I'm talking to, it's a realization that they want to live a slightly different kind of life, which is super interesting. I think a lot of people are thinking about wanting to spend more time gardening and being outside and being with their families. And, but I hear you. There are all sorts of ways. It's a real break, right? It's a real moment of, like, we're on pause. There's no choice. And so you get to really think about what else you might want.
So let me ask you, like, in your contemplation, like, what are the things that you think you would want to shift in the aftermath?
I'm starting to think, I don't know. It's so hard to imagine, but, I'd never been more than 2 weeks here at the beach. And I'd always wanted to, like, try and take some time. I always thought it'd be so nice to spend a season living out here and just see what it's like. I'm really, really appreciating being in nature more than I could have anticipated, like the walking and the sound of the birds and the sound of the water. I mean, I am super lucky to be in this place. Like, I realize it. And I'm in a small house with a lot of people. So that's been a little less than ideal. But it's also a really, like, an unexpected opportunity for me to connect with my kids. Like, I never thought I'd live with my kids again. And here we are, which is an experience a lot of people are having. So it's making me wonder if, when things go somewhat back to normal, because the kids are ultimately, all of them, planning on moving on by the end of the summer to various places, will I maybe want to live more of my life out here? I mean, my work challenge is, can I get this app off the ground and can I make it work? But for the most part, we can really all work from home on this project. So I don't know. That's what it's making me think. It's making me wonder about my life in the city.
And for me, and I had some health challenges leading up to this, and I was finally back out in the world, and now I'm back in again. So it felt like, oh my God. But I've spent so much of my life working, right? And all of a sudden, I'm liking working a little less. Like, some of my projects that were about to soar, got halted, and it's like, I think I might work a little less after this. And
I think a lot of people I spoke to a really high-powered woman this morning who said she had just gone to kind of start her own consulting company. And she said, but suddenly I'm feeling an incredible lack of motivation and I'm kind of enjoying it. So
Yeah.
that's a
Well,
whole
that's, well, her lack of motivation might be
depression.
some depression also.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't feel a lack of motivation because I'm still doing, like, I'm doing webinars every week. I'm working like crazy. But I feel like, the weekends leading up to this, because I had lost some time, I was spending a lot of weekends doing work to launch 2 new projects. And what I wouldn't give for those weekends back to be out seeing people doing
Yeah.
things than sitting by myself in my office creating, right?
Yeah.
So I think that I have to balance. I know I will be balancing that out more when this is done, because I think, life has to be a little more balanced. And so yeah, so whoever's listening, really contemplate like your interests and dreams, and what you want to do when you're done, and what, for me, for you, like, what experience haven't you had yet that you'd like to experience?
Yeah, it's a
Like,
great way to think
yeah.
and fantasize.
And that gives you resilience. That gives you hope. That gives you, like, when we get to the other side, there's something amazing waiting for us. And
Yeah.
it lets you get through an experience that is less than optimal, right?
Yeah, that's a great.
And just, I don't know how much time we have left, but I just want to make sure to get to some
It's
that
okay. We can always go
yeah.
tangent over if you can. I'm fine. I wanted to hear
Yeah.
about.
So I want to talk to another tenet is meaning and purpose. And this one's a really important one. And I guess it goes along with what we were just talking about, but I want to look at it in a macro level, and I want people to think about it in a micro level. Like, in a macro level, um, you and I both have been through things, death, all of that. Like, I've always been the person that when you get through something, to look at what are the lessons, what did I learn from this? Where does my life get better, even though I lost something and I hurt, right? So I want people to start thinking about this in terms of, like, I know you probably have read things ever since this pandemic hit, our pollution is down.
I know, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Right now, this is me personally. Like, I'm an animal advocate. I don't eat them. I give all my money
Okay.
to them.
Debbie won't even have a car with leather seats. And
Yes,
also,
I've changed. I've gone vegan as much as possible. The only thing I haven't done is shoes, but I haven't bought any new ones.
and also one thing that kills me, Debbie doesn't like to receive flowers because they die, which that's totally beyond me, but okay.
Yes, that is true. I'm someone who doesn't have a problem feeling my feelings. I have to find a way not to, right? I will tell you, Nina, and whoever's listening, I've now taken to feeding the pigeons in New York because I feel like they're not getting fed because they're getting skinnier. So I bought bread, and I don't leave the house without all bread to feed the pigeons because I can't tolerate how it feels. I also feed the homeless.
So sweet.
Nonetheless, what I was talking about is the bigger meaning. So there's a macro meaning of, like, maybe it's like a pause of, like, what are we doing? What are our choices in the world? Are we hurting the environment? To me, that's a big macro meaning, but then there's the micro meaning of, purpose, like, who are we? What is our purpose in lives? What makes us feel like we're doing great things in the world? My purpose and meaning is to help people, right? Maybe it's to be a mother. Maybe it's to be an advocate in your community. It is a good time to really figure out, like, what brings purpose to your soul.
Yeah.
And this is a good time to look at those lessons, look at those meanings, and, do things for yourself in that way that make you feel good.
Well,
Do you want to advocate for children or animals or whatever your thing is?
Right. It's the way, like, our lives are feeling much simpler, right? When we really, all we're doing is, like, cooking, cleaning, some exercise if we're lucky, and connecting with friends, right? There's a very, like, distillation of what we do. And so it enables us to think more about what we're really providing in the world.
And that's not a bad thing. To me, that's the silver lining of all of this. Obviously, as long as we have stayed healthy and we haven't lost a loved one, that's a whole other animal. The people that I talk to that have lost people during this, it's been tough, really tough, because you can't even be with them at the end. And, that's, again, a whole other conversation. The other thing is giving to others.
Yeah.
Is a huge thing that I think you hear all the time, that if you are feeling bad, give to someone else.
Right. And the idea of
feel better,
and volunteering, and, right, any way that you can, like, I just signed up to do this doorstep thing where people are going to pick up a bag of groceries on my door. And that made me feel good. So just giving. And, there are no selfless acts, right? Like, the people that give, we receive so much more.
It was my birthday during COVID, and I was bummed out. I haven't had a birthday out in a bunch of years. Thank you. That's okay. I had a big thing planned because I had been a number of years since I've been able to go out on my birthday, and it was just halted. And I did an Instagram post because now that's what I do. I do Instagram posts. And so my clients saw my Instagram post. And if I can tell you on my birthday that, I give to them and give to them, and you were my client, like we're so super connected. I love, it's love. It's a real relationship. It's not, just, I'm your therapist. We're connected. And I worked so hard with them, but God, did they love me back during my birthday. I got so many messages, right? And it's just a reminder that when you give, you receive so much more. Yeah. You really do.
And I've totally learned that in the community too. It's why we've continued doing it. The women, I get so much out of it.
Yes. And it could even just be, right, like feeding the pigeons or going to the supermarket and saying, thank you for working. Without you, it could be a kind word. I like to liken it to filling someone's bucket. Yeah. Even just a nice compliment or saying hello to someone and I miss you or I appreciate you.
I completely agree. When I go on these walks out here, I'm always seeing people and smiling and trying to. And it's funny when you're wearing a mask and you smile, people still can tell that you're smiling,
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's true. I think remembering that every day, and even just like with the kids in my house, the people I'm quarantined with, and it kind of goes back to the boundaries idea. I've been really aware of like trying to support everyone's experience. And when I feel like I can't, I just retreat a little. And then I go, because you just want everyone to feel supported and happy.
Yes. And I have a lot to say on boundaries, but you did a whole thing on it, so I'll just leave it. But yes,
we'll do that another time.
Yeah, it's really important.
Really interesting during this time.
And just to sort of cap it off, they talk about giving yourself pleasure, and not just sexual pleasure. I mean, of course, if you can have sexual pleasure, have your sexual pleasure, but it's like the pleasure of a good meal or a good song or a good TV show or a good movie, just, to just nurture yourself with as much as you possibly can. And then everyone always talks about humor and laughter and fun, sort of dance as if no one's watching, but a sense of play. But, I know for me, like I'm enjoying the late night talk shows in a way that I never have. There's something about, yep. I actually tape them all. It depends on the guest, but you've got Jimmy Fallon, you've got Stephen Colbert, you've got James Corden, Seth Meyers. It's in their homes and you're getting a piece of them that you never got before. And there's something, and there's some things, actually, I would highly recommend. Oh my God. I wish I had written down. Jimmy Kimmel the other night did a skit. I don't know if anyone's Trump supporters, not Trump supporters, but it was this thing.
We hate Trump.
Okay. There's a thing with a baby and then he put Trump's face in it. And I literally laughed out loud. It was
good.
Anyway,
how do you watch these? Do you watch them on Instagram? Do you watch them on YouTube?
No, they're on TV. I tape. I'm taping all the time. And then when when I'm on this elliptical that is so boring and my only form of exercise, I watch it. Yeah.
Someone just said, I just retired and I want to think carefully before I go into a lot of activities because I've been super busy all my life and felt like I had to be always helping, doing things. She was a lawyer and a judge. I happen to know. I've been doing a schedule through this stay-at-home time, and I'm loving having my mornings for meditation and slowing down. So my pause is to really step back and not fly into new things. I feel like everyone only thinks about what they're going to do rather than how to live. I like your finding how to balance that. If you're on the giving to others train 24/7, self-care is something to balance in. Totally.
Yes, and but her contemplation is, and I think mine is too, like a little less work and a little more life.
Yeah,
right. Like
that's kind of how I'm feeling too.
Yeah. And then there are some people who have not found sort of something they love to do. They never experienced that, and maybe they want to go try that. Right. Like we've all had different trajectories. So I do think that, I think the morning routine and having time for meditation yourself is amazing, especially if you've never had it before,
All right, now before we wrap up, I have a few silly questions for you.
Okay, so just to let you know, flow and zest for work are the other two, and you guys can look them up, but go ahead.
Flow and zest for work.
Yeah, flow is finding an activity that the hours just pass and you don't feel them passing.
Okay, rollerblading for me at the moment. I got rollerblades on this quarantine, and I've been rollerblading again. It's amazing.
And if the hours just pass, just for, for me, it's when I'm creating something. For some people, it's writing. Some people, it's cooking. Whatever it is, and just for zest for work. For those of us who are working at home, and I'm still working a lot from home. I'm still working 40 hours a week here, or more. It's still bringing your joy and your passion to it, even though it's in this whole new form. And I think that's always true. Whatever you do in a life, I don't care what it is, you should always bring your A game. You should always bring your passion and your best foot forward. And
I always tell my kids that nothing makes me crazier when you go to like a store and the cashier is like really cranky. I'm like, just do your job, like do
exactly.
Joy.
And when you go in and someone is so nice doing, such a small thing, it makes such a difference. Yes.
No, and on The Wolfer, actually, our little silver lining has been doing these video interviews. Like we always kind of meant to do it and never got around to it, and now we've kind of been forced to, and it's been really fun and interesting.
Yeah, it's nice.
So how old are you, Debbie? Can you tell us?
Yes, I turned 55 in April.
And so if you could think of one best thing about getting older and one worst thing?
Well, I'm definitely going to say the word. I mean, it's interesting. I would have had my answer before this probably would have been, what starts to happen to our bodies in terms of aging. But actually, my answer is now different. It's that you feel like you're running out of time and you're not going to be able to do all you want to do. Because, my face that never missed my dermatology appointment is now my face. And, and my nails are now my nails. And I look in the mirror, I'm like, that's so terrible.
Not really so bad. I know it's not really so bad. It's kind of
so bad. It's kind of okay.
I don't have my eyelashes or Botox, and I'm like,
yes,
it's fine.
Yeah, exactly. And I think I've been doing that shit for so long that my face actually is not that different because I started so young that it's like, it's all right. So yeah, I really think time is very present for me. And like I keep saying, I've had this for the last 4 years now of like, I'm losing time, and am I going to get to experience and do everything that I want? So that's the hard part of getting old. The nice part of getting older is that, and everyone says this, but it's really true. You actually just don't care what people think anymore. I don't think I've cared for a long time now, but as you get older and older, you really come into your own and you just sort of do whatever you want, and it just doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And I think the majority of people, women that are aging, would say that. Like, you're just free.
Well, men say that. You never actually hear men say that. I wonder why.
I don't know that men would say that. I mean, it's an interesting thing. I've never heard men say it either, because it's always women who are being asked about aging.
It's true. That's actually a good point. Men aren't asked. And in fact, maybe I should find a good man to interview on some subjects, because it's interesting. I wonder what they would say the best part of aging.
Huh. I mean, for them, it might be, it also depends on their circumstance. If maybe they've made it because they're so socialized that they should have good careers. If they've made it to a certain point in their career and they're well respected, I feel that way too. I've worked so hard in my career. I'm just a very established, respected shrink. I don't have to worry about where business is coming from.
Yeah. It's funny, I realize that I feel that way too. I had a book this fall that I couldn't sell, and I really wasn't that upset about it. And it's been interesting. I really feel like 10 years ago, I would have been much more insecure.
Devastated. Yes.
I just don't feel that. I feel like I've done a lot in my life. It's fine.
It's fine. Exactly. And your 20s, your 30s, 40s, and going. And then it's sort of like, I've arrived. Like I'm good. It's good. I don't have to, I could work if I want much harder, or I could rest on my laurels a little bit.
Yeah. These are really nice.
Nice. Yeah.
Debbie, I love you.
I love you too.
Right, we'll have you back on some other subject, because this is just so fun for me, and I'm glad to see you. And then I'm gonna call you at another time so I can hear the birds singing, because I'm not hearing them from my apartment. First thing in the morning, they're so loud. It's like heaven.
Yeah, luckily I'm now leaving the city on the weekends because it's nice out, so you can social distance outside with people, and so I've actually had some suburb time, which is nice. Anyway, I love you. Bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
See you later.
Bye.